Captain Dongwu stared at the endless black space through the bridge window of his ship. The Persistence. 3 years had passed since Earth sent them on this mission to explore beyond the solar system. His crew had become like family during their long journey among the stars. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said So-Young from her station. She was the ship's communication expert, and her voice carried worry. "There are signals coming from the next star system. They don't match anything in our database." Ji-Hai, their pilot, looked up from her controls. "Should we check it out? We're running low on supplies anyway. Maybe there's a planet we can land on." Taemin, the engineer, nodded from his corner. "The ship could use some repairs too. That last meteor shower damaged our outer hull." Dongwu thought for a moment. This was exactly why Earth had sent them out here, to find new things, to explore the unknown. "Set course for the system," he decided, "but stay alert. We don't know what's out there." The Persistence moved toward the strange signals. As they got closer, So-Young's face went pale. "Captain, you need to see this," she said, pointing at her screen. "Those signals. They're coming from ships. Huge ships." Through the main window, they saw them. Massive vessels that looked like floating crystals, each one 10 times bigger than their small ship. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, their surfaces glowing with strange lights. "How many?" Dongwu asked. 20? "No, 30 ships," Ji-Hai whispered. "Captain, we need to leave, now." Before Dongwu could give the order, their ship shook violently. Red lights flashed on every panel. Taemin ran to his controls, but it was too late. "They're pulling us in with some kind of beam," he shouted. "I can't break free." The alien ships surrounded the Persistence like wolves around prey. Whatever technology they used was far beyond anything humans had ever seen. Dongwu felt helpless as his ship was dragged toward the largest vessel. "Everyone stay calm," he told his crew. "We knew this might happen when we left Earth. We represent all of humanity now. Whatever these aliens want, we show them that humans don't give up easily." The Persistence was pulled into a massive hangar inside the alien mothership. Through the windows, they saw creatures moving around outside. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but they were much taller and their skin looked like living crystal. They had 4 arms instead of 2, and their movements were smooth and powerful. Metal doors slid open with a hiss. The aliens entered the ship, and up close they were even more frightening. Their leader was the biggest, with crystal skin that seemed to glow from within. When it spoke, the words came through speakers in their language. "You will come with us," the translation said. "Do not resist." Dongwu stepped forward. "I'm Captain Dongwu of the human ship Persistence. We come in peace. We mean no harm to your people." The alien leader tilted its head, studying Dongwu like he was some interesting animal. "You speak boldly for such a small creature," it said. "Our queen will want to see you." They were marched through corridors that looked like the inside of a giant gemstone. Everything was smooth and glowing, beautiful but cold. Other aliens stopped to stare at the humans as they passed. Dongwu could feel their eyes on him, judging, measuring. The throne room was enormous. The walls reached so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows. At the center sat a throne made of what looked like living crystal, and on it sat the most impressive alien yet. She was clearly female, though much larger than any human woman. Her crystal skin was darker than the others, almost black, with veins of silver running through it. 4 arms rested on the throne's armrests, and her eyes glowed like stars. This was their queen. The aliens who had captured them knelt down, but Dongwu remained standing. He looked directly at the queen, meeting her glowing gaze without fear. "So," the queen said, her voice filling the entire room, "these are the creatures from the small ship. How interesting." She stood up from her throne, and Dongwu realized she was almost 8 feet tall. "I am Queen Kira Thel, ruler of the Velthari Empire. You have entered our space without permission." "We didn't know this was your space," Dongwu replied. "We're explorers from a planet called Earth. We're looking for new worlds and new friends among the stars." Several aliens in the court made sounds that might have been laughter. The queen raised one of her 4 hands, and they fell silent. "Friends?" she said, stepping down from her throne. Each step echoed through the room. We do not make friends with inferior species. We conquer them, or we ignore them. She walked closer to Dongwu, studying him. But you are different. Different how? Dongwu asked. The queen circled around him like a predator. Most creatures cower when they see me. They beg for mercy or try to run. But you stand there, looking me in the eyes, speaking to me, as if we were equals. She stopped in front of him again. Tell me, human, what is your name? Captain Dongwu. Dongwu, she repeated, testing the sound. I have conquered 12 star systems. I have defeated the strongest warriors of 100 worlds. Never has anyone shown such boldness in my presence. Her glowing eyes narrowed. This intrigues me. The court fell completely silent. Even the guards seemed to be holding their breath. The queen reached out with one of her hands and touched Dongwu's face. Her crystal skin was surprisingly warm. Yes, she said, and her voice carried a new tone that made everyone in the room tense. You will do perfectly. She stepped back and raised her voice so everyone could hear. I have made my decision. This human has proven himself worthy through his courage and defiance. She pointed at Dongwu with one of her 4 hands. Your objections are worthless, human. You will be my mate. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Dongwu felt his blood turn cold. Behind him, he heard So Young gasp and Ji Hai whisper, "Oh no," under her breath. I'm sorry, what? Dongwu said. Sure, he had misunderstood. Queen Kirathel smiled, showing teeth like diamonds. You heard correctly, Dongwu of Earth. I choose you to be my husband, to rule beside me as my consort. Your strength of spirit has impressed me greatly. I'm honored, Dongwu said carefully, but I have to decline. I'm not looking for marriage, especially not to someone who just captured my ship and threatened my crew. The queen's smile grew wider. Such fire, such defiance. This only proves I have chosen well. She turned to her guards. Take him and his companions to the royal guest quarters. They will be treated well, but they are not to leave this ship. As the guards moved forward, Dongwu realized that his simple mission to explore space had just become much more complicated. Behind the queen's fascination, he could see something that worried him even more than her size and power. She genuinely believed that his refusal meant nothing, that she could simply take what she wanted. The human crew was led away to their new prison, while Queen Kirathel watched Dongwu with glowing eyes that promised this was only the beginning. The room they were locked in was beautiful, but clearly a prison. The walls were made of the same crystal material as everything else on the ship, glowing softly with blue light. There were 4 beds, a table, and what looked like a bathroom area. Everything was too big for humans, built for the 8-foot-tall aliens. Dongwu sat on one of the oversized beds while his crew gathered around him. They spoke in whispers, worried that someone might be listening. Captain, what are we going to do? Ji-Hai asked. That queen is completely insane if she thinks she can just force you to marry her. She seemed pretty serious about it. So Young added, Did you see how everyone in that room reacted? Like this was normal for them. Taemin was examining the walls, looking for any weakness they could use to escape. These crystals are harder than anything I've ever seen. And I can't find any control panels or switches anywhere. Before Dongwu could answer, the wall suddenly became transparent. On the other side stood an alien, but this one looked different from the others. His crystal skin was lighter, almost clear, and he seemed nervous. Please do not be afraid, the alien said through speakers in the wall. I am Zulkar, a scientist in the Queen's service. I have been ordered to speak with you and learn about your species. Can you help us escape? Dongwu asked directly. Zulkar looked around nervously, then shook his head. I cannot, but I can explain what is happening to you. Perhaps this will help you understand your situation. Go ahead, Dongwu said. We're listening. The alien scientist began to pace back and forth outside their cell. The Velthari Empire has existed for over 1,000 years. We have conquered 12 star systems and hundreds of worlds. Our society is built on strength and dominance. What does that mean exactly? So Young asked. It means that the strongest rule and the weak serve. Zulkar explained. Queen Kirathel is our ruler because she is the most powerful warrior among us. She has defeated every challenger, conquered every enemy. What she wants, she takes. Ji-Hae crossed her arms. So she just decides she wants my captain as a husband, and that's it? Nobody gets to say no? In our culture, being chosen by the queen is the highest honor possible, Zulkar said. No one has ever refused such an offer. Most would die for the chance. Well, humans are different, Dongwu said firmly. We believe in choice. We believe people should decide for themselves who they want to marry. Zulkar stared at him through the transparent wall. This is difficult for me to understand. How can the weak be allowed to refuse the strong? How does your society function? Taimin stepped forward. We choose our leaders based on their ideas and abilities, not just their strength. We work together, help each other, make decisions as a group. Impossible, Zulkar said, but he sounded more curious than dismissive. Such a system would collapse within days. The strongest would take control immediately. It works for us, Dongwu said. And it's gotten us to the stars, same as you. The scientist was quiet for a long moment. The Queen has been asking questions about your species since you were brought aboard. She wants to know why you showed no fear, why you refused to kneel when everyone else did. Your behavior fascinates her. What kind of questions? So Young asked. She wants to know how humans fight, how they think, what makes them brave. She has never encountered beings like you before. Zulkar leaned closer to the wall. I must warn you. She plans to test you. She will bring you before her court again and again, trying to understand what makes you different. What kind of tests? Dongwu asked. Combat, puzzles, challenges of wit and strength. She believes that if she can understand your courage, she can possess it, and she believes that if she can break that courage, you will finally accept her offer. Ji-Hae looked worried. Captain, maybe we should try to contact Earth. Let them know what's happening. I've been trying, So Young said quietly. I've been working on the communication equipment they took from our ship. If I can get to it, I might be able to send a message. Zulkar heard this and became even more nervous. You must not attempt escape. The Queen has ordered that you be treated well, but if you try to leave, she will become angry. An angry queen is dangerous for everyone. On this ship, how dangerous? Taemin asked. She once had an entire planet's population relocated because one of their leaders insulted her. She does not forgive, and she does not forget. That evening, guards came to get Dongwu. They led him through the crystal corridors to a smaller room where Queen Kirathel waited. This time, she was alone, sitting at a table that had been adjusted to human height. She had even arranged for human-sized food to be brought. Sit, she commanded, gesturing to the chair across from her with 2 of her 4 hands. Dongwu remained standing. I prefer to stand. Her eyes flashed, but instead of anger, she looked pleased. Even in private, you defy me. Good. Weakness disgusts me, but strength. Strength is attractive. I'm not trying to attract you, Dongwu said bluntly. I want you to let me and my crew go home. Home, she repeated, testing the word. Tell me about this Earth of yours. What kind of world produces creatures like you? Despite himself, Dongwu found himself talking about Earth, the blue oceans, the green forests, the cities full of millions of people all living their own lives, making their own choices. He talked about democracy, about freedom, about the idea that every person had value regardless of their strength. Kirathel listened with fascination. Your world sounds chaotic, she said. How do you prevent the strong from simply taking everything they want? We have laws, agreements between people. We punish those who abuse their strength to hurt others. And the strong accept this? Most do, because they understand that a society where everyone cooperates is stronger than one where only the physically powerful survive. The Queen stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. I have conquered worlds, Dongwu. I have seen species that built great cities, that created beautiful art, that reached for the stars just as yours did. And I have watched them all fall because in the end, strength is all that matters. Maybe you're wrong, Dongwu said quietly. She turned back to him, and for a moment her expression was almost vulnerable. What if I am? What if there is another way? Then her face hardened again. But it does not matter. You are here now. And you are mine. I will learn what makes you strong, and then you will accept your place at my side. That will never happen. Kirathel smiled her diamond-toothed smile. We shall see, my stubborn human. We shall see. As the guards led him back to his cell, Dongwu realized that the queen's fascination with him was more than just attraction. She saw something in humanity that challenged everything she believed about power and strength. And that, he thought, might be the key to getting his crew home safely. But first he had to survive whatever tests she had planned for him. The next morning, guards came for Dongwu again. This time they brought him to a large circular room filled with Velthari nobles. Queen Kirathel sat on a portable throne at one end, watching as two massive warriors fought with crystal weapons. In the center. "Ah, my future mate arrives," the queen announced loudly. The fighting stopped, and everyone turned to look at Dongwu. "Today, you will prove your worthiness in combat." "I already told you I'm not interested in proving anything," Dongwu said. "And I'm definitely not your future mate." The queen's smile grew wider. "Such defiance, even surrounded by my strongest warriors. You show no fear." She gestured to the two fighters. "These are Korthak and Velmon, champions of my personal guard. You will fight one of them to show your strength." Dongwu looked at the two aliens. Each was nearly 9 feet tall, covered in thick crystal armor, and holding weapons that glowed with energy. "I'll fight," he said, "but not to prove I'm worthy of you. I'll fight to protect my crew." "The reason matters little," Kirathel said. "Choose your opponent." Dongwu studied both warriors. Korthak was bigger and moved like a tank, slow but incredibly powerful. Velmon was smaller but faster, his movements quick and precise. "I'll fight Velmon," he decided. The crowd murmured, with interest. Most expected the human to choose the slower opponent. Velmon stepped forward, spinning his crystal blade with expert skill. "You may choose any weapon," the queen offered. Dongwu looked at the rack of alien weapons. They were all too big and heavy for him. Instead, he picked up a piece of broken crystal from the floor, sharp, light, and about the size of a knife. "This will do." The Velthari nobles laughed. Even Queen Kirathel looked confused. "You choose to fight a master warrior with a piece of broken rock?" "Sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't expect," Dongwu replied. The fight began. Velmon came at him fast, swinging his energy blade in patterns that would have cut a normal opponent in half. But Dongwu didn't fight like the aliens expected. Instead of meeting strength with strength, he dodged, rolled, and used his smaller size to his advantage. The Velthari had never seen fighting like this. Their combat was all about power and direct attacks. Dongwu fought like water, flowing around his opponent's strength, striking at weak points, using the alien's own momentum against him. When Velmon swung his heavy blade, Dongwu wasn't there. When the alien tried to grab him, Dongwu slipped, away like smoke. The crowd grew quiet as they watched this strange new style of combat. Velmon grew frustrated. His attacks became wilder, less controlled. That's when Dongwu struck. He used his crystal shard to cut the straps holding Velmon's heavy armor, then tripped the off-balance warrior. The massive alien crashed to the floor with his own weapon pointed at his throat. The room fell completely silent. A human, barely half the size of a Velthari warrior, had just defeated one of their champions using nothing but a broken piece of crystal and tactics they had never seen before. Queen Kirathel stood up slowly, her 4 hands gripping the arms of her throne. "Impossible," she whispered. Then louder, "How?" "I didn't try to be stronger than him," Dongwu explained, breathing heavily. "I used his strength against him. Sometimes the best way to win is not to fight the way your enemy expects." The queen stared at him for a long moment. "Again," she commanded. "Fight Korthak now." "No," Dongwu said simply. The word echoed through the silent room like thunder. No one had ever refused a direct order from Queen Kirathel. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice dangerously low. "I said no. I proved I could fight. I proved humans aren't helpless. That's enough." Dongwu dropped his crystal shard. I'm not going to keep fighting for your entertainment. Several nobles gasped. Some reached for their weapons. But Queen Kirathel held up one hand, stopping them. She was studying Dongwu with new interest. You defeat my champion, prove your warrior skill, and then refuse to continue? She shook her head in amazement. I do not understand you, human. That's the point, Dongwu said. You keep trying to fit me into your world, your rules, your way of thinking. But I'm not Velthari. I'm human. And humans don't do things just because someone stronger tells them to. Meanwhile, back in their cell, So-Young had been busy. While the guards were distracted by the fighting, she had managed to access her communication equipment. Her fingers flew over the controls as she tried to reach Earth. Come on, she whispered. Please work. Taemin was keeping watch while Jihai helped with the technical work. Any luck? He asked quietly. I'm getting something, So-Young said excitedly. It's weak, but yes. I've got a connection to Earth Command. The message she sent was short, but urgent. Human exploration ship Persistence, captured by hostile aliens. Captain and crew held prisoner, require immediate assistance, coordinates attached. She managed to send the message just before footsteps in the corridor warned them that the guards were returning. They quickly hid the equipment and pretended to be sleeping. On Earth, Admiral Yoon-ji received the message in her office at Fleet Command. She read it 3 times before calling an emergency meeting. Within hours, the largest rescue fleet in human history was being prepared for launch. Back on the Velthari ship, Queen Kirathel had called a private meeting with her advisors. The humans' victory had shaken more than just the fighting arena. It had shaken the foundation of everything they believed about strength and power. Your Majesty, said General Mordak, her military commander, this human makes us look weak. The other species we have conquered will hear about this. They may begin to think they can resist us too. Perhaps, the Queen said thoughtfully. That would not be such a terrible thing. The general's crystal skin darkened with anger. You cannot. Be serious. We rule through strength, through fear. If our subjects stop fearing us, they might start respecting us instead, Kirathel finished. Tell me, General, in all our conquests, have we ever encountered a species that fought the way this human fought today? No, Your Majesty. His tactics were unusual. Unusual and effective, the Queen pointed out. He defeated Velmon not through superior strength, but through superior thinking. What if we have been wrong all this time? What if intelligence and strategy are more powerful than brute force? General Mordak's 4 hands clenched into fists. Your Majesty, I fear this human has clouded your judgment. You are talking like a weak ruler. Queen Kirathel's eyes flashed dangerously. Careful, General. Question my decisions if you must, but do not question my strength. That night, as Dongwu lay on his oversized bed, he thought about what he had learned. The Velthari were powerful, but their rigid thinking was also their weakness. They had never encountered anyone who fought differently, thought differently, or refused to accept their rules. If he could keep challenging their assumptions, keep showing them that there were other ways to be strong, maybe he could create enough doubt in their system to find a way home. But it was dangerous. He could see that some of the Velthari, like General Mordak, saw him as a threat that needed to be eliminated. The next day would bring new challenges, new tests. But Dongwu was beginning to understand that this wasn't just about his freedom, or even his crew's safety. This was about showing an entire empire that there was more than one way to be strong, more than one way to rule, and more than one way to live among the stars. The human spirit, it seemed, was more powerful than any alien weapon. Word of Dongwu's victory spread through the Velthari ship faster than light through space. Lower-ranking aliens began whispering in corridors, asking questions they had never dared ask before. If a small human could defeat their greatest warrior, through cleverness rather than strength, what did that say about their entire way of life? Zulkar visited the humans again that evening, more nervous than ever. Your actions have caused great unrest, he told Dongwu through the transparent wall. Some of the younger Velthari are beginning to question whether strength alone makes a good leader. Good, Dongwu said. Questions never hurt anyone. You do not understand, Zulkar insisted. General Mordak is telling everyone that the Queen has become weak, that she is too fascinated with you to rule properly. He is gathering support among the older nobles. So Young looked up from where she was working on hidden communication equipment. What does that mean exactly? It means there may be a coup, Zulkar explained. A violent takeover of the throne. And if that happens, General Mordak will kill all of you to prove that human ideas are worthless. Meanwhile, in the royal chambers, Queen Kirathel was having her own troubles. Half her court supported General Mordak's position that she was becoming too weak. The other half were fascinated by the humans' strange ideas about leadership and strength. Your Majesty, said her daughter, Nethera, I have been thinking about what the humans said, about choosing leaders based on ideas rather than strength. Kirathel looked at her daughter with surprise. Nethera was young by Velthari standards, but she had always been thoughtful. What about it interests you? Well, Nethera said carefully, what if the humans' planet became so advanced because they use everyone's ideas, not just the strongest person's ideas? What if we have been wasting the intelligence of millions of our subjects by only listening to the physically powerful? Before the Queen could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors as soldiers ran to battle stations. General Mordak's voice echoed from speakers everywhere. Citizens of the Empire! Queen Kirathel has been corrupted by alien influence. She cares more about her human pet than about the strength of our people. I, General Mordak, challenge her right to rule. The coup had begun. Dongwu heard the alarms from his cell and immediately understood what was happening. They're going to kill us as soon as they take control, he told his crew. Not if I can help it, Ji-Hai said, pointing toward the corridor. The guards who usually watch them had run off to join the fighting, leaving their cell unguarded. Tai Min examined the crystal wall that kept them prisoner. I think I can overload the locking mechanism, he said, pulling out tools he had hidden from their ship. But it might cause an explosion. Do it, Dongwu ordered. While Tai Min worked, So Young frantically sent another message toward Earth. Civil war started on alien ship. Situation extremely dangerous. Send help immediately. The wall exploded outward in a shower of crystal fragments. The humans ran into the corridor, where they could hear the sounds of battle coming from all directions. Energy weapons flashed, and the ship shook with explosions. Which way to the Queen? Dongwu asked. His crew stared at him. Captain, Ji-Hai said, we should be running away from the Queen, not toward her. If General Mordak wins, he'll kill us all, Dongwu explained. But if we help the Queen, maybe she'll listen to reason. Plus, she's the only one who might be able to prevent this war from spreading to other planets. They made their way through the crystal corridors, following the sounds of heaviest fighting. Twice they had to hide from groups of rebel soldiers. Once they were almost caught by loyalist forces who mistook them for enemies. Finally, they reached the throne room. The massive space had become a battlefield. Queen Kirathel stood behind her crystal throne, defending herself with a glowing weapon against a dozen rebel attackers. Her loyal guards were outnumbered and falling back. General Mordak stood at the far end of the room, directing his forces. Surrender, Kirathel, he shouted. Your weakness has infected our entire empire. It ends now! That's when Dongwu did something that surprised everyone in the room. He stepped out of hiding and walked straight toward the Queen, right through the middle of the battle. Energy blasts flew around him, but he didn't dodge or run. He walked, calmly and steadily, as if he were simply taking a stroll through a park on Earth. The fighting actually stopped for a moment as both sides stared at this incredible display of either courage or insanity. What are you doing here, human? Queen Kirathel demanded as Dongwu reached her side. Helping, he said simply, picking up a crystal weapon from a fallen guard. Why? I am your captor, your enemy. Dongwu looked at her seriously. Because General Mordak is worse than you are. Because your daughter believes in something better than endless conquest, and because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than doing the smart thing. The Queen stared at him for a moment, then smiled her diamond-toothed smile. You continue to amaze me, Dongwu of Earth. The battle resumed, but now it was different. Dongwu didn't fight like the Velthari. He used the same fluid, unpredictable tactics he had shown in the arena. But this time, he was working with the Queen's forces instead of against them. Taemin proved that human engineering skills worked on alien technology, quickly repairing damaged weapons and shields. Ji-Hai's piloting experience helped her operate Velthari defensive systems better than some of the ship's own crew, and So-Young used her communication skills to coordinate between different groups of loyalist forces. The humans brought something the Velthari had never had in battle: teamwork. They worked together, protected each other, and made decisions as a group instead of following rigid command structures. General Mordak watched in growing fury as his carefully planned coup began to fall apart. "Kill the humans!" he ordered his soldiers. "They are poisoning our warriors with their weakness." But it was too late. Young Velthari soldiers had seen what cooperation could accomplish. They had seen how the humans' different way of fighting was not weaker than the traditional way. It was just different and sometimes more effective. Some of the rebels began switching sides. Others simply stopped fighting and watched in amazement as the tide of battle turned. The end came suddenly. General Mordak, desperate to prove his strength, challenged Queen Kirathel to single combat. But the Queen had learned something from watching Dongwu fight. Instead of meeting the general's brute force with more brute force, she used strategy and intelligence. She defeated him not by being stronger, but by being smarter. As General Mordak lay defeated on the crystal floor, Queen Kirathel looked around her throne room. Half of it was destroyed, many of her subjects were wounded, and her empire would never be the same. But for the first time in her life, she wondered if that might be a good thing. "Human," she said to Dongwu, "you have shown me something today that I did not expect to learn." "What's that?" "That true strength sometimes means fighting beside your enemies instead of against them." She looked at her daughter Neth-Era, who had fought bravely in the battle. "And that the young may have wisdom the old have forgotten." Dongwu nodded. "Does this mean you'll let us go home?" Queen Kirathel was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps," she said finally. "But first there is much we need to discuss. About strength, about leadership, and about the future of both our peoples." Outside the ship, unknown to everyone inside, a human rescue fleet had finally arrived in the star system. Admiral Han Sol studied the massive alien vessels on his screens and prepared for what he expected to be the largest battle in human history. He had no idea that the real battle was already over and that humanity had won it not through superior firepower, but through something much more powerful: the simple idea that different could be better than traditional.